Welcome back to Staircase to Nowhere, your ministry and culture podcast. I'm Sam Carroll, here with my friends Noah and David. Say hi, Noah and David.
Hello,
hi,
everyone.
Noah and David.
Oh my gosh, David, you do this every week.
And it's always funny. It keeps the
Get the laugh 10% of the time.
Every time. We're so glad that you are tuning in with us today. We're excited for our conversation. I'm really excited for this conversation down the road. We're going to be talking about pastors and how much money we should pay them, or if we should just pay them in coupons or good memories or what the heck.
Gifts in heaven.
Or gifts or treasures in heaven. But before we
wait, pastors get paid?
David,
Some of them.
Some of them, my friend. Before we get to that conversation, I wanted to make an announcement. It's not really an announcement. That's not the right word for it. Just say something about Spotify's new commenting feature. If you haven't had the chance to shoot us an email at staircasepod@gmail.com, or just hit the little reply button on Spotify, we encourage you to do that, interact with us. If you do use the feature on Spotify, it can be kind of misleading. It looks like when you go to post that it's going to post publicly for everybody to see what you commented, but that's not true. That's not what it does. It just sends us a little message with your comment so we can read it. So yeah, if you want to go back to other episodes or just comment on this one, if you have thoughts or feedback or pushback, we'd love to hear it. So I just wanted to put that plug. We usually throw it at the end of the episode, but I usually don't listen all the way through to the end of podcasts.
What?
So why would you?
Sam.
Well, I cut off the last 10 seconds or 15 seconds. I'm like, all right, I know this is done.
I know they're about to wrap it up.
You
Drag it on.
You guys listen all the way, till the outro music ends? David's shaking his head no. Thank you.
No, because I don't want to hear the ad at the end.
Yeah.
Well,
Bitter help. Yeah.
These people who listen to our podcast don't know that we don't have an ad at the end if they haven't listened
true.
to the end.
Oh, Noah, they know we don't have an ad at the end.
Well, they expect that we must have been sponsored by now.
Yeah,
NordVPN.
We're usually good to the last drop, though, I will say. We keep it.
I do wonder, do we have any listeners yet who don't know us personally? If you, just found us on Spotify, would you just respond and say, hi, I'm listening? I'd really appreciate that, because
that would make my week.
Yeah, if I found us on Spotify, I would go, oh my gosh, there's other people who are talking about things that we talk about. Well, of course, I would.
What about the opposite, though?
Because you're you.
Me.
How about we do the opposite? So the people, our wives and have to tell us that they're listening, so then we know, we've had 16 listeners this week, we've had 16 responses. Okay.
There we go. You're actually engaging. Anyway, so I just want to get that out of the way, but we have an actual announcement.
Announcement.
We're dropping merch! We're dropping merch!
The merch says pastors shouldn't get paid. No. You can buy it for $29.95. All the proceeds go to us.
Oh, that's a steal. $29.95?
No, that is not what's happening. Merch is not dropping. But
go to Redbubble.
Somebody did drop to one knee this weekend on a beach and asked a very specific question to a very lovely lady. Ladies and gentlemen, our good friend Noah got engaged this week. Man, we just want to congratulate you, scream it from the rooftops. We're so happy for you and Rebecca. We love you guys. I've never actually met Rebecca in person. Met her once over the phone. It was great. But
I followed her on Instagram.
Yeah, we follow each other on Instagram now, so we're friends.
That's about as close as you can get.
As close as you can get these days.
Wow.
But yeah, man, congratulations from us and all of our faithful listeners. We're really happy for you guys. And we want to hear all about the story. Tell us how it happened. Tell us what went down. How'd you ask? What'd you do? Did you cry? Did you kiss?
So that way,
everything.
In 40 years, you can tell your great-great-grandkids about how you and their great-great-grandmother got engaged. And I said 40 years, so you got to get to work.
Yeah. Oh, that is fast, isn't it? To have great-great-grandchildren. So... if you are a faithful listener of Staircase to Nowhere, you first heard of Rebecca in the last episode when I just let slip. I saw Jesus Revolution with Rebecca, and you boys said, wait, who's Rebecca? Not that you didn't know, but that the people didn't know.
It's called trying to get some interest.
Sparking interest. So I took Rebecca to a jewelry store. We looked at rings, and I bought one. And we went on a road trip over Easter break, which seminary gives amazing breaks, by the way. Like, I highly recommend.
Shout out Southeastern.
Yeah, you can get a full week off for spring break in March, and then another week off for Easter break for some reason. So we went to Florida twice, and I'm not even mad because I had the best week of my life. And so I got that ring, and I plan to propose to her in Florida. The plan that I had changed, and I had to last minute on the fly come together with how am I going to propose to her. And I got to do it at the beach, Flagler Beach, where we went on our first date.
Shout out Flagler Beach.
Where I asked her to be my girlfriend. Ooh. Just a mere 15 weeks ago. 15
months, 15
no,
weeks.
It sure sounds like you have a child if you're counting months.
Yeah, no. This child's measured in weeks. This is a fetal child. So, yeah. This story is going very weird. But anyway, I asked my sisters to come. Hannah was in town from Indiana. Natalie came down from Jacksonville. And they hid underneath the boardwalk. And
under the
Rebecca
boardwalk.
We went to the beach, and I asked her to wear a dress, and she was like, why would I wear a dress to the beach? And I'm like...
Oh, you did? Question. You asked her to wear a dress? Erica asked specifically, she was like, how did Noah get her in a dress? How did that happen? And I was like, I think it just happened. But you asked
So I said just so casually, hey, would you want to go to the sunrise? And she's like, the sunrise? You never wake up. And I'm like, yeah, I'd like to see it once. And so I was like, we can go to Flagler Beach, it's where we
Wait, you mean to tell me the sun rises every day?
I just need to see it once. Just like, being like,
yeah, you gotta do it. Say you did it once, just so you have it.
You just gotta go once. That way you have it.
Yeah.
I said to her, then we can get brunch afterwards at the same place we went on our first date. I didn't look up. That restaurant does not open until like noon. And so that was not an option.
What kind of a brunch place doesn't open at noon?
We'll like dress up nice. It's not a brunch place. I just assumed they had breakfast. They don't.
Okay.
I was like, we'll dress nice. You wear that red dress. She's like, the red dress? Why? And I'm like, we're gonna look nice at the beach.
I legit was about to ask that. I was about to ask that question. Did you tell her specifically what dress?
Oh yeah. I love that dress. And so yeah. And I wore shorts, and she's like, why do you get to wear shorts? And I'm wearing a dress. I'm like, well, if I wore pants, you could wear pants, but the shorts are the, I'm not going to wear pants. So
Rebecca, wear your khakis to the beach.
Yeah, exactly. We're wearing our khaki
Wear your
shorts.
best power suit to the beach.
So we're sitting there at the beach. She offers me one of her mom's hot cross buns, which is her Good Friday tradition. Did I mention it was Good Friday? And
yes, it was.
The hot cross buns are the tradition that they eat. They're homemade and delicious. And she offers me one, and I'm like, no, not right now. Because I was so nervous and anxious, I just couldn't eat it right then. And I'm just sitting there, just like all this nervous energy, just like kicking my foot around. And then I get a text from my sister Hannah that says, on the left. I'm like, on the left?
That's what Spider-Man says.
What on the left? So I'm like looking to the left. Rebecca sees me looking around. She's like, what are you looking at? I'm like,
the left.
Snipers. We're watching for snipers.
Yeah, I don't even say anything. I have no good answer. And I'm like, let's go take a walk over to the left. Because there's these fishermen. I don't want the fishermen in our pictures. And so I'm about to walk her to the left. I stand up. She's like, taking a sip of water, repositioning her bag, like moving so slow. And I'm freaking out because I know what I'm about to do.
Little does she know.
And then I see a flash. And I turn around and I see my sisters sitting under the boardwalk. And I go, oh my gosh, they're not to the left. They're to the right. I don't know why she texted me to the left. And so I said to her, let's go walk this way. And she's like, I thought you said that way. And I'm like, yeah, this way.
I'm a confusing person.
I'm a 7.
Yeah, exactly. We go over. I walk like 3 steps. And then I turn around and face her. And when I look in her eyes are just screaming like, I know exactly what you're doing. And it's more like, oh my gosh, are you about to really do this right now? And then I suddenly lose all my words. I have nothing to say anymore. I, had spent the night before in prayer and journaling and writing her a note, and then I have nothing to say. And
Mary, will you be?
And so then I get on my knee, and she literally...
Which knee?
Left down. Is that appropriate?
Ooh, that's good luck. I don't know if that's true.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it's not true.
I just want the best for you guys, so I'm going to make it.
Let's make it a reality.
How auspicious. Yeah. So I get down on the knee, and she literally jumps up and down and screams yes. Which made me just feel so good, because I'd been so nervous and just like, is this the right time? Should I have done this? Like, all these things. And then just her excitement. I'm excited. I didn't even get to put it on her. She's hugging me. Like,
the fishermen are excited.
The fishermen don't even
They give you a nice
us.
bass.
Yeah.
And then we're standing there, and she goes like, I don't even remember what happened. Like, did you get on your knee? I'm like, yes. And she's like, did I even say yes? And I'm like, yes. And then I said, which is a good thing that I wrote you this letter, which has all the things that I wanted to say, but I didn't say right now. And she takes it from me and she says, this is so efficient. And I'm like, I was looking for romantic, but...
I was going for romantic, but efficient works.
Efficient, yes. If that's what gets you going, girl, that. Yes.
Yes.
So then we sit down. She reads the letter. I watch her reading the letter, and I'm just like crying because like her face is like smiling as she reads it. And I'm just like talking about the gospel and about Jesus and Good Friday and how like because of him, like we can be a godly marriage and all these things. And just that broken people like me could be a faithful husband and just like beep, 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 tears, tears, tears. And then I tell her that there is 2 photographers here. And she goes, what? And I said, my sisters are here. And she turns around so excited to see them and was so glad that they were a part of the day. And then my sisters do a photo shoot of us, and giving us the space after the proposal before doing the photo shoot was my sister Hannah's idea. Because she said that when they got engaged, the photographer jumped right out immediately, and they hadn't even really processed it. And like we had such like sweet time just to process it and to read that letter because of her saying, we're going to give you 15 minutes.
That's good. And go Hannah.
Yeah, I know.
You go, girl.
It was the best. Yeah. I hadn't even thought about that. And so,
for anybody listening that takes that advice, Venmo Hannah $5.
Yeah, she deserves it.
Yeah.
So then my sisters left us and said, we're going to leave you be. And we sat on the beach for another hour and texted everyone we know and sent them the photos. And my phone was not sending and her phone was sending. And so we had a couple awkward scenarios where people thought that like my friend Adam, his wife got a text from Rebecca and he didn't get a text from me for an hour. And so he's like, I just thought you didn't want to tell me. And I'm like,
aww.
No, I texted you immediately.
No, I did not want to tell you.
I didn't even notice.
Then we spent the day just with our families, celebrating, spending time with each one of them. Our families live close to each other, which is a huge blessing. So we just got to sit with her family, sit with my family, go to Good Friday service, worship Jesus together. It was the best.
What an incredible day.
Cash money.
Cash money. Well, hey, congratulations, Noah and Rebecca. So excited for you guys.
When are you getting married?
When's the wedding?
All the podcast people want to know.
Yeah.
It's in December.
Woohoo! Not everybody's invited, so don't hold your breath.
Show up. Just drive to Florida. You'll find it. I'm sure.
Yeah. We'll have a podcast listeners' wedding.
Oh, a special wedding just for podcast listeners.
We'll have a special fan meetup somewhere.
Come
to the podcast listener reception at the wedding for the first.
Too good.
Yeah.
Beautiful story.
It is so fun because Staircase Nowhere fans, Sam and David are two of my groomsmen. And so it is so fun to have them.
I'm in it. You're in it. Both of us are in it. Did you know that?
As two of my best friends. Oh, man.
It was yeah. Well, thanks for sharing, Noah. You're going to make an amazing husband. We're super proud of you.
Stop it.
And
no, seriously, stop it.
Yeah, you're about to cry. All right, cool.
All right, well, this transitions great into this conversation because I had a conversation in the car with Rebecca the other day about how I have always wanted to be a pastor since I was 16 years old, but through my classes, through the things I've been learning about, through learning about missions, learning about disciple-making movements around the world, I am not sure if full-time paid pastors is the way to go.
Hold up. Whoa.
And this kind of freaked her out a little bit because I was like, yep, all my career training is for a career that I'm not sure should be a thing.
I'm working on my master's in something that I don't want to be paid anything.
That I don't agree with.
I really do want to get paid from it, but I also look at things like the way that resources are spent in the church in the West, and then like the results that we get. Like I heard a number the other day, like the average baptism in the United States costs like over $1 million.
Whoa.
If you add up like the amount of money that's spent on church ministry in the United States and then divide it by the number of baptisms per year, we're looking at $1 million a year for one baptism.
That is crazy.
That's crazy.
That's bad, okay? That's not going to get the job done. Meanwhile, around the world, you have churches with very little resource, pastors who are just like everyone else and are, scraping by like the rest of them. And they are serving their church and they're preaching the word and they're making disciples. And so is everyone else, because they're not outsourcing the work to a professional holy man. And everybody is a part of this movement, and then the church spreads. And so I want to see more disciple-making movements in which everyone takes responsibility, but often that doesn't happen when you do have a paid person that you can point to and say they're our full-time leader. Yeah. And so that's the conversation I want to bust wide open today, thinking about what we know about church history, what we know about our current context today, what we know about missions, what we know about the Bible, and just consider like, what is a pastor? Did God intend in Acts that it's people with a full-time salary and package and benefits? And clearly not in Acts, right? But like, is it a bad thing? Like, is it the right thing? I don't know. Just help me out.
Yeah, well, and I think to start interjecting here, maybe some nuance and for us to talk about even some of our, like how we grew up. I know for me and Noah and David, if you want to share like your experience growing up in the church, because I don't want to, there could be some people listening who we immediately lost. We're like, of course you need paid pastors. But
all three of us have worked full-time as paid ministers, just so everyone knows. All three of us.
All three of us have worked in different capacities in the church. All three of us have been educated by large Christian institutions. So, and I grew up Noah and I grew up in a huge church. Like, we grew up in a church with an HR department and
17 full-time pastors
with an executive team. Like, wow. So I am a product, and I received like theological training and discipleship through an organization that was really big, and that would not have been like, just wouldn't have existed without full-time, paid staff people who had masters and doctorates and were well paid because they did a good job at what they were hired to do. So, like, just to say that, like, we're not coming from like, we're starting to have these questions as us as friends, honestly. So it feels like it's worth getting it kind of unpacking from maybe for some other people, some of the dialogues that we're having, the questions that we're asking, the things that we're coming up in on our research and our experience, that we're starting to go, hey, is this the best way forward for us in the Western church? Is this model the best one that honors the Lord and like advances the kingdom in the way? So
it's a very classic staircase to nowhere question, because it's looking at the Bible and it's looking at the gospel and it's looking at God's mission and it's saying, how do we best live this out today in our culture and time? And it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly the way that the last generation did it, So, like, looking at all the generations that we've got and all the different contexts around the world and thinking about how can we live out what God's called us to do today.
Yeah. I think this is a note I think we should go before we go on, is I've had people ask me, how do you get paid? So
that's a good question.
So I think that's a good place to start. So when you boys were on staff at various churches, where did the money come from?
Yeah.
For your pay.
Yeah. So, Sam, why don't you go first? Because yours is more traditional.
Yeah. So, well, let's not forget, I worked at at that big church in Naples I was the 5th grade ministry director for a season.
Yes.
So David, get this. My job was I was hired. It was a part-time thing, but like, I did the 5th grade class. Like,
5th grade only.
Not elementary school, but like, I helped run programming for this 5th grade class. It sounds cooler than it was. It was like a piloted thing. I don't know if that still exists or not. But I worked there. I don't know how money came. Well, there were tons of people at that church. Money came from all the people, whatever. But when I moved to Mississippi,
I think people don't know that.
They don't understand. Yeah.
Oh. What?
People give to the church, their offerings to the Lord.
Give money on Sunday morning, and they say, "Here, Lord, here's my tithe, here's my generous gift." And that money gets distributed to the staff and to the facility and to the programming and to the debt and to all those things.
So the church creates a budget based on the offerings that it's received from its congregation, and that's pretty like the traditional way that churches are funded in the West, in the United States.
Yeah. And even just, I guess this is a deep dive, but churches will come up with their projected monthly, weekly giving, like based on our projections. We are expecting people to give, $2,000 a week. And then, our giving goal is this much, our projected is this much. So this is how much we need. That's just how churches work, or like that's how they generally function. And that same thing was translated to when I was in Mississippi, but on a much smaller scale. I went from a church of thousands to a church of like, if we had 200 people there, the Lord is in this place. Like, that would have been amazing. I think we probably had like 120 on a weekend, Sunday school and service and stuff included.
Which is still a great size for a church.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was an amazing time to be there. And that was the same thing. Money came from, I lived in a parsonage. So I had my own house that the church owned. The church owned the house, and I lived right across the street from where I worked. So yeah, my housing was free because the church owned the house. And then I got paid a very, very modest sum to do ministry in a week in and week out. So,
yeah. And so I've worked for a Christian nonprofit in which it was fundraised. And so we all were a part of the fundraising. together. It wasn't that I just fundraised my individual salary, but that we all fundraised together towards the budget bottom line. So some people were able to raise larger amounts because they came from backgrounds that had more money, and then some people were able to raise smaller amounts because they didn't come from those backgrounds, but together we all got paid. And then I worked for a church in which people did give consistently, but the church itself was not financially self-sustaining based on the giving of its members. And so we fundraised from outside sources, we applied for grants, and we were able to raise the funds that we needed to have full-time staff and building and all that kind of stuff through multiple streams of income.
Nice. And that's what I've had some people ask me, because I was a part of a denomination, do I get money from the denomination? So, and this is a conversation we're going to have in the future, talking about denominations. And, yeah. And so, to be a part of it, there is a financial implication for being a part of a denomination. So, some churches, some groups, so you have like the Wesleyans or the Presbyterians or the Baptists or the Methodists, and there is a certain amount of money that is part of being part of that denomination. And I have had people ask me if I get paid from the denomination.
Oh.
Or if the church itself gets some money from the denomination. And we do not. In fact, we pay the denomination.
Yeah, it almost always goes the other way.
Yeah.
So when we were United Methodists, we had to give them 11% of our budget every year.
And that's a requirement of the United Methodist Church.
Yes. And if you don't, you get in trouble.
It's interesting because the in the Southern Baptist Church, it's a cooperative giving, and so it's a choice to give a percentage to missions, church planting, all those things, keeping seminary costs low, but there's no mandated percentages, and they can't say anything to you if you don't do it.
I was a part of a church that they gave to that cooperative program was not anywhere close to 11%. They were like, yeah, we're here, but we don't want to be here. Here's some money, to keep us in good standing.
Well, that's the thing, is some churches have a massive budget, so 11% is not a small amount for some churches.
That's a lot of money.
So for me, I get paid from when you have the church, they pass the offering plate around in some churches, or they talk about, hey, here's ways you can give, just like how Noah and Sam already mentioned. It goes to keeping the lights on. It goes to paying my salary. It goes to paying rent in some situations. Or, honestly, our biggest cost is insurance. So, when you make a donation to the church, it pays for all of that kind of stuff. And so that's where the whole conversation starts from, is that's expensive to do that. I am the biggest part of my church's budget. Aside, me being,
and you don't make that much money.
No. But I'm half the budget of the church, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so the question is, and this brings us to the main question, is how do we go about this? The professionalization of the clergy is the conversation we're having today. So Noah, you did some research about that,
So I was researching bivocational ministry, and bivocational is basically when pastors have another job. They have two vocations. They work as a pastor, but they also work in another job. David right now is under the title of bivocational pastor because he works for the church and he has another job as well. And so, and that's basically what we're seeing like in the New Testament, right? That's what we're seeing like throughout history, where like you didn't necessarily work full time for the church. This article that I found said even in more affluent countries, only in the last couple of centuries has it become more common to have one full-time pastor in one local setting. That it wasn't affordable until congregations started to have more wealth. We're talking the 1800s, 1900s in affluent countries like the United States in the West. And so, historically, hasn't really been a thing too long. I mean, we could make an argument maybe that like Roman Catholic priests were like, that was their vocation and they had their needs met like by serving the church. We do have the verse when Paul says like those who do the work of gospel ministry should be able to like make their living by gospel ministry. So that's beautiful. Thank you, Paul.
Which and like just to say like that is in the Bible, and that is like that is usually the verse that is used to justify all pastoral salaries, right? Like if you're going to do, I shouldn't say all of that, but that's a very big verse that we use to talk about if I'm going to be how do we justify paying people to do full-time ministry? Well, those who do the work of the gospel should make their living by the gospel. That's what Paul said. Not to say we shouldn't do that, but as we're talking about, I just think that it's interesting that I think we could do even a biblical survey of like how teachers and apostles and like different early church fathers like made their living and stuff. Yeah. But I just wanted to know. I think that's an interesting verse. That is, the verse is there, but we use it as a springboard into like 6-figure salaries sometimes.
Yeah, it's our big proof text in this area that we see like that apostles got their needs met, and we see even Jesus sending like the disciples 2 by 2 and like go into this town and don't take any money and let people take care of your needs, right? Mm-hmm. So like we see that model, but we don't necessarily see like, hey, churches should encourage all their members to give 10% monthly so that you can create a budget, whereas you can become a 501c3 and you can, have to have insurance and have to have a building and like pay your pastor's health insurance. So like we've taken it to a level that like is a blessing, truthfully, to like not have to work in any other area and be able to focus on just pastoral ministry. But I think that sometimes we like lose the love of it when we're getting paid to do it. I have a professor who says like the word amateur, we think like not as good, but amateur actually means in Latin for the love of it. Oh, like you do it because you love it. You don't do it because you're getting paid, And I think that a lot of pastors, like when like pastors are struggling or like during the pandemic, so many pastors like consider like, should I be doing this anymore? Like if it's your livelihood, like all of that's wrapped up in it, it's like a lot easier to just kind of like fake it and keep going than to like say like, I shouldn't be doing this right now.
The marriage between calling and career is can get very complicated, right? Because like if you are called, well, this is kind of, I think this is at the heart of what we're saying somewhat. If you are called to pastor, you are called to pastor. If you are called to teach, you are called to teach. If you are called to fill in the blank with whatever the Spirit has gifted you with, that's your calling, regardless of if your career paycheck funds that. Yeah, regardless of if your paycheck funds that. And I think we've crossed some wires where some people are pursuing get lost in a career because while they were in love, they had a calling, but they got lost in a career, or like they entered a career without ever having a calling because we do have this like the same way you become a pastor, unfortunately, is the same way you might become an accountant. Is like you go to school, you get these things, you do this stuff and you do that. And if you remove the calling from it and you just create this career path to church leadership, then I think that calling and career thing is really can get really dicey because
and we're all called to make disciples, every believer of Jesus, right? Yeah. And so then like if you're now getting paid to make disciples, like then other people might not think that they have a responsibility to make disciples.
Yeah.
We are products of the Reformation who believe in the priesthood of all believers, that God has called every single believer to be a priest and to be a disciple maker who is leading others to faith in Christ. And yet it feels really easy to outsource when you have a pastor who stands from the front and we get to sit in the pews and we just get to listen while they do the work.
Yeah.
My first gig, I was looking for volunteers for the youth group. I was the youth pastor, and I was looking for volunteers, and I had one of my parishioners say, "Why do you need volunteers if that's what we pay you to do?"
There it is.
Boom roasted, David.
And that's the exact issue we're talking about.
Right. When Ephesians 4 says that God has given apostles, prophets, teachers, shepherds, and evangelists, did I get them right? Not in the right order, to equip the saints for the work of ministry, right? So the job of church leaders is not to do all the ministry. We're not the only ones who are called to make disciples, but we're called to equip the saints, which is all believers, to do the ministry. Mm-hmm. And it says so that we can become mature, so we can become unified. Like, that is what God is calling us as leaders to do, to equip others. And I do see our pastors do that, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think that when we're getting paid to do it, it's easy for church members to believe that that's our job and not their job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And not to, don't want to just throw every paid staff member under the bus right now. All of us have directly benefited from having jobs and being discipled and all these things from people in those paid positions. But I think we just want to have that honest conversation about what if let's open this and ask some of the questions. So do you guys think we could try? I would love to if we could try, because I could see how maybe people could ask, how did Jesus do ministry? How did these apostles do the ministry? How did these church functions? Wasn't Judas in charge of the money bag or something? They had money. How did ministry operate in the context that Jesus was living in and the early church fathers and the apostles were doing work in? So I think that might be worth. I know I can share some things just from share. So just Jesus and how rabbinical ministry worked back when Jesus was teaching.
What's that word? Rabbinical.
So how rabbis would go around and how they would rabbits. Jesus, this rabbi that called 12 disciples, and was teaching them about this new kingdom, right? This anointed one, the Christ, who said, "Hey, this is the Sermon on the Mount stuff. He's coming, and he is bringing a band of people and delivering this teaching that we have based our lives on and have committed ourselves to follow him." This first century rabbi, how rabbis would teach is they would go village to village, and they would go and they'd bring their teachings into those places, and people would host them in their homes. When it talks about how different women were funding Jesus's ministry. People that means they would give money, but they would also provide lodging, help provide food. When Jesus would go into a town, he would be staying with people. It was very what's the word? I don't know. It was very stripped down.
And meeting physical needs, not necessarily giving money.
Yeah, it was more than, they didn't have checking accounts. They weren't okay, how much money is in the savings? Can we put this on the card? No, it was we go into a village and our needs are met. That's when Jesus sends out the 70 and he's okay, you guys go do ministry.
Don't take a purse.
Don't take a purse with you. That's because the culture was just different. People's needs were met through hospitality. Strangers were hospitable to strangers, just in that context. So we can read that and be how did they sleep somewhere? Jesus knew that they were going to be taken care of when they went into a village and said, "Hey, we're here. We have we're here to teach." People would have gathered to listen, and things would have been met that way. So just to talk about that's how Jesus was doing it. He was going from village to village with his band of disciples that he was discipling. They were sitting at his feet wherever he went, but then he would go into these different regions and be hosted and be cared for by, leaders in that village or just people in that village that were ready to receive his teaching. And he would travel around the Galilee and do that stuff.
And then once we get into Acts, like, what do we see, like, Peter and Paul and Barnabas and, like, the apostles start to do?
I gotta think.
The first thing I think about is how, like, people started, like, selling possessions and laying them at the apostles' feet, right? So there definitely was, like, some collecting of money. Like, it says that Barnabas sold an entire piece of land and brought it to the apostles' feet, which led Ananias and Sapphira to sell theirs too and say they brought it all when they didn't really.
Yeah, there was a real reorg happening in that, like, Pentecost, those opening chapters of Acts are crazy. Just if you read them at face value, or, if you're not, when you really step back, you're like, wow, the Spirit was just poured out. I think you can sense the apostles are kind of like, what do we do? Like, people are selling their stuff. There is this influx of money and property and wealth. And they're like, okay, how do we, and I would note that what is that money used for? It's to make sure that people's needs are met. Like in the early church, the primary way that the biggest budget line item was not, our salaries, but it was caring for people. It was caring for the poor. It was caring for the needs of the congregation. It was that, like, it wasn't to bankroll, Peter and John and, like, to get everybody, on paid salary with benefits. It was to care for the needs of their community.
They were selling property as any had need. We see, like, there's a distribution of food that they're doing to widows and to vulnerable people that were in need.
The other cost that I see too when you read scripture, you have transportation costs, right? So Paul is getting on a boat, right? That costs a lot of money. And then even the cost of owning scrolls for those churches. I heard it one time, like, the equivalent of owning the scroll of Isaiah in today's money would be around $40,000.
What?
Yeah.
To get it hand copied. I mean, Isaiah is a really big book.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you even see Luke Acts, Luke's hired by Theophilus to write this all down. And so some of it was privately funded, right? Theophilus paid Luke to transcribe this. And then you see Paul, and we're probably getting to this point, I assume, Paul making tents, right? He had times where he was in the marketplace in Ephesus making or repairing or selling tents, right? We know that he was in the marketplace there for like 2 years. But then there was also times where there were generous benefactors who gave to his need in order so that he could go and do his missionary journeys, right?
Yeah.
He talks in some of his letters thanking various church leaders and churches for giving to the need of his transportation. And so there were times where he was fundraising, right? People were giving him funds to go on his missionary journeys. There was times where he set up in the marketplace. The other one I wanted to add too is you got to remember it started out of a Jewish movement, right? It was a Jewish sect. And there was a certain expectation for the priests that they would be given money, right? They would be given, because they couldn't own land, right? The Levitical priests weren't given a plot of land when the promised land was given. And so they were given food. They were given a portion of the city to live in. They were given a chunk of things to be taken care of because they could not work the fields. They couldn't be farmers. They couldn't be craftsmen because they were doing the ministry of killing bulls and things like that. And so in some ways that would have continued in a way in the culture of the early church, of there's this set expectation of the tithe to go to that representative priest, things like that. The most likely thing throughout history is your average pastor was probably a farmer, and then they may have gotten a little bit of money from the church to just help, like probably with like transportation needs, things like that. But most, especially today, not in the majority world, your pastors are dual vocation, right? And for the longest time, most clergy were farmers, but that's because everyone was a farmer back in the day.
Yeah, you grew your food.
Yep. There's the problem of like, it does take a decent bit of bandwidth to effectively manage and lead a group of people, right? If you're trying to help people grow in their faith, if you're trying to establish systems for them to do that, it takes time to do that, right? And so the question is, to me, it's like I think we're almost needed to have the question of, what does the church need to look like? And if we do want smaller churches or, whatever, do we still kick some money to someone because like they're not going to be able to work as many hours in their normal job because they're doing certain work of the church? Because the problem is there is work that needs done that's going to take away from their time to do their normal job. So let's say you're a craftsman, right? You make shoes or something like that. But you're also the pastor of a church of 100 people, okay? Whenever you're not repairing shoes by going and visiting the poor or by, preparing a message or helping check in with your leaders in the church, that's time that you're not repairing shoes. And so the question is, if there is a call to have a certain level of leadership in the church, how do you accommodate someone's time and talent and treasures and let them have sufficient means to live, right? That's the question for me. Because I think there is that problem I face, when people said, well, that's not my job, you're the youth pastor. And so to me, it's a really difficult balance to find. Thoughts?
Yeah. Where I used to work at the nonprofit, like, our operations director would always say, like, yes, our salaries are our biggest budget line, but what do you want to be the biggest budget line in ministry? You could buy a bunch of pencils, but if you have a bunch of pencils on a park bench, you do not have a ministry. But if you pay a bunch of amazing people to go to a park bench, you have a ministry. And I would even get frustrated there when people were part-time because they weren't able to focus like entirely on the task of ministry because they were trying to do their other job and they didn't have the flexibility and they didn't have the time to like invest in youth like I had as a full-time staff member. And I was like, full-time only. We can't have part-time staff members because they don't have enough time. And so it's kind of funny that I'm like now on this other side of like, maybe no one should be paid. But like, I found this article about Paul's tent making because, you brought that up and we always talk about it, but I'm like, where in the Bible is this Paul's tent making, But in Acts, he talks about how he worked hard to help the weak and to show them like how they can also work hard to help the weak. Remembering the words of the Lord Jesus, how he said it's more blessed to give than to receive. And so this writer says, Paul's done engaging in tent making as a necessity so he can do the real job of preaching. Paul is doing that work in the marketplace, in his sewing, in the lecture hall, in the prison. All of it is his witness. All of it's his testimony. And so like, I think that it really is good when like the pastors are modeling that for the people, that like our work is worship, and that our workplace is the place where we engage non-believers. It is the place where we engage the culture, where we are contributing to society and to our community. And I think that oftentimes when we become full-time pastors, we often get less and less engagement with the community because we get more and more engagement with maintaining structures inside a church building.
Yeah.
It's like the mission goes down because the church ministry goes up, And so like if we are focused on the right things about mission, about discipleship, yeah, I would love to like sponsor these people, encourage them, keep going, because being full-time just on the right things is so good. But when you're full-time, you have to have HR, you have to have policies, you like have to do like reporting, you have to do like admin work. And oftentimes like those tasks end up taking you away from the true vine work of discipleship mission. There's this book called The Trellis and the Vine, and it talks about how Christian ministry is vine work. It is caring for people. It is helping people grow closer to God and become mature disciples who make more disciples. But vines have to grow on a trellis. A trellis is like a wooden structure that vines grow on. If vines grow on the ground, grapes would be gross. They would not develop, right? You have to have a trellis so the vine is in the air. And so they said that like things like church budgets, things like pastors, things like buildings, things like programs or events like Wednesday night or even Sunday morning worship are all trellis. They all are there to support the work of developing, multiplying disciples who love Jesus with more of their lives. And so their issue with us in the Western church and their call to us as pastors from Australia, who I'm sure are full-time, is we have to spend our time on the vine work, on the people, and not on the trellis. The issue is we get so focused on like trying to maintain that trellis because we build a bigger building so we can fit more people, but then the bigger building costs more money. And when it costs more money, we need to get a bigger budget, and so we need to do a giving campaign or we need to do write a grant. All these things start taking us away from the point in the first place, which was the people.
Yeah. Because just to add that note, like once money like that starts to be getting involved, you have to produce some results. Generally, you have to answer to the money that is coming. Like if we are giving, I would say the to use that language, like the vine work isn't always quantifiable. Like to sow the seeds of the gospel. Like, I mean, I do this at my job now sometimes where I'm like, I talk about my day and I'm like, if I just told you what I did today, you'd be like, it sounds like you didn't really do anything. And I'm like, no, that's because like when you're working with people, those moments matter. And just because I'm not entering numbers into a spreadsheet or like, doing some measurable output thing doesn't mean that I'm not doing work that is impacting someone's heart and someone's life. And that's really hard to quantify if you're like, hey, we gave you $100,000 towards this thing. What are the results? And you're like, well, we did good people work. It's like, well, what? You know what I mean? Just the language changes once you start getting that much money and that much funding behind those things.
This seems like a staircase to nowhere kind of day.
Because we don't have the solution.
So staircase us to somewhere. I guess here I'll start because this is, I think, for me where I've felt like I've landed. So the Ferguson brothers talked about co-vocational instead of using bivocational, and Noah kind of hit that. The idea being wherever you are can be your pulpit. I've told the people in my congregation, the dump truck you drive is your pulpit, right?
Yeah.
The way you cut people's hair is your pulpit. And so, and I've talked about this before, when I've been full-time in ministry, I never see non-Christians, right? And so, to me, if you really care about your job, it might be good to have, a job where you have to have two jobs, so then you get a chance to spend time with non-Christians. I think the worst thing, at least for me, was going straight from college to seminary to ministry because it didn't give me a chance to see the real world and see the pain that people go through, see the despair that people have. And so I would encourage, being full-time, not full-time in ministry, I don't care. But I do highly encourage anyone who feels like called to ministry, go spend a year working in the normal place, working in the marketplace. 1, so you can see what your parishioners are going through. 2, so you can build up a social network of people. And 3, so you can begin your ministry there. So that's my encouragement, is co-vocational.
Woo! I like that. I probably will end with a thought, just a question. Like, Noah, you mentioned your old boss said this, and I've just been stuck on it. Like, well, what do we want our biggest line item to be on our budget? And I'm kind of like, yeah, what do we want our biggest line item to be? Like, if we could just say, and my my liberal is showing a little bit where I'm like,
no.
Where I'm like, wouldn't it be an amazing thing if our biggest line item was just benevolence or just like charity? Like, if the biggest thing that the church did with their budget was give money to those who need, or like give things away to people that needed it. Yeah, because I can just speak from my own, like in what I do now, how much, if every church in my city in Louisville said, we're going to give 10% of our money to solving the housing crisis in our city, we would solve it pretty quick. Like, that might, I'm just guessing, but if we as the capital C church, like as we as the whole church just said, we're just going to really aggressively give our money away to help solve, some of the social issues that we're seeing that we face in our own communities, then I just see how far that could go. And that's where we're having this conversation, because I'm like, is it really worth, for me who feels called to ministry, like, is it worth the entity of the church putting me on payroll for thousands of dollars a year? Like, is that worth it? Or is there other better ways to spend that money? And I don't know. I'm still in the middle of figuring that conversation out. But yeah, I just like this idea of, what do we want our biggest line item to be? If we could really decide, do we want it to be big salaries and insurance or our mortgage or whatever as a body? Or would we want it to be something else? So,
right. In the New Testament, it's giving to the needs of those in the church, and it's giving to the needs of the poor. Yeah. Yeah, and I think I heard an amazing podcast
called Staircase to Nowhere.
And now shout out. From a leader in Tampa Underground, which is a network of church plants, church house churches that is all just disciple-making movement in Tampa. And so you've got a group of people that agree that we are going to, the phrase they always use is, own the lostness in our community and take responsibility for our neighbors and seeing them come to faith in Christ. And none of them are doing it full-time. They're just agreeing to do it together. And so there's a guy who is managing this, and he doesn't actually take a salary from the church, but through a separate nonprofit. And what he talks about is just the amount of wealth that the church has in the West. And he said, what if we saw the church as a global system? That in God's eyes, when he sees his church, he sees that there's more than enough resource for all the believers around the world. And yet here in the West, we're using it to buy a bigger building, a fog machine, lights, so we can really wow our guests on Easter who are going to go home and not be confronted with the call to discipleship. And the church around the world needs it. And he truly believes that we will be judged for not giving what we have received for the church that needs it. And those churches around the world is where the gospel's spreading like wildfire.
Being done. Yeah.
Exactly. The global church, the global south of Latin America, Asia, Africa, that's where the gospel is spreading. And people are receiving the gospel and forming communities in their homes and Like, meanwhile here, we try to lure them in somehow, you know, and don't see the change happen. So, I don't know. As long as I am actually living it out, you know, as long as I don't say, like, I'm going to do some other job because I believe that I shouldn't be paid as a pastor, and then I end up not doing the work of pastoral ministry, you know?
Yeah.
I end up not discipling people, not teaching the word, not being about God's mission, not training others to do the same. Like, that would be a disaster, because I do believe that's what God's called me to do. But I want God's resources to be used for God's mission, you know? And I don't necessarily need to always be paid by the church in order to do the work. Because that's, like, I'm doing it for the love of it. And Sam, when we were looking at old photos from high school of the way that we were serving in full-time ministry as high school kids, it was just so encouraging. Like, we did neighborhood outreach. We were discipling younger guys in the youth group. We were leading in the youth ministry, like, gatherings. And we just did it because we loved it.
Yeah.
And we did it because we had opportunity, and people raised us up and empowered us and gave us responsibility. Too much.
A little too much at times, but it's fine.
And that's when we both knew we wanted to do that for our whole lives. And I think that when it became full-time and it became our jobs, it got a lot harder. But, like, that love is still there, and wanting to do that work because we saw Jesus work. And we saw him move on mission trips, and we saw him move among our team, and we saw him move in our community.
Guys, this was a good, tough conversation. Coming from someone who is co-vocational to figuring out what to do next. My hope for all of us, though, is that just like Noah and Sam both said, like, we do it for the love of it, and to continue to raise people up and to equip other people for the ministry. And so I'm excited for this conversation, and I'm thankful to be able to talk about this. And so with that, if you guys have any thoughts or questions, you listeners at home, we'd love for you to engage with this conversation. Do you think clergy should be full-time? Do you think we should pay clergy at all? What should be a church's biggest line item? These are the questions we need to have. And so please let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you, again, like we said at the beginning of the show, if you have any subjects you'd love us to cover, please let us know. Most importantly, be looking for our swag that's coming out.
And your wedding invitation.
Because these pastors aren't getting paid, people.
Yeah, we gotta monetize.
But with that, I was David, this was Noah and Sam, and you were listening to Staircase.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
I'm an engaged man. I'm engaged to be wed.